My wife kept saying she'd leave if I didn't change. So I called a lawyer. Now she says I betrayed her. We've been married for almost 9 years. We have 2 kids, and our youngest is just over 2 years old, 2 years and 3 months, to be exact. There's something about tracking the age of your youngest that keeps you grounded in the timeline of your life. I remember when my wife and I used to look at other couples with toddlers and wonder how they managed to keep it together. Now I know the secret, many of them didn't. To be honest, the cracks in our relationship started forming well before our youngest was even born. They weren't the dramatic kind of cracks you see in movies. No cheating, no explosive fights, no scandal. Just little things, small fractures born of exhaustion, miscommunication, and unmet needs that slowly added up over time. I can't pretend I was blameless. I'm probably a bit avoidant. I don't like confrontation. I tend to shut down instead of speaking up. I've always struggled to express what I want or need, which has led me to just silently endure things, sometimes lying by omission or half-truths, thinking I was keeping the peace when really, I was just building resentment. I also think I'm pretty self-centered, maybe not in a malicious way, but I get lost in my own world. I can be absent-minded and forget to consider how my actions, or lack thereof, affect her. I miss cues. I overlook gestures. I withdraw when things get too hard, which, of course, only makes everything worse. My wife, on the other hand, is more anxious and reactive. She feels things deeply, and when she doesn't feel seen or heard, she reacts, sometimes sharply. She's not good at hiding her pain. When she's scared or upset, it comes out fast, often sounding like anger or criticism. I think my passivity only amplified her anxiety. She'd interpret my quiet or my emotional distance as a lack of care or love. And it hurt her. It got even harder after the birth of our second child. Postpartum hit her hard. Not in an obvious way. There were no hospitalizations, no major breakdowns. Just this constant fog over our lives. She was exhausted and raw, and I didn't know how to help. Instead of trying to reach her, I receded further. I let her take the brunt of parenting duties, especially the emotional load. I told myself I was working hard, that I was tired too, but the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid I was already failing, and so I avoided trying. Over the last 2 years, the word divorce has come up more times than I can count. Sometimes it felt like a threat. Other times, like a cry for help. But it started to gain weight, especially in the past 6 months. One night, she told me she'd picked out an attorney. She didn't say she'd met with one, but she talked about birdnesting strategies, where the kids stay in the family home and the parents rotate in and out. That's when I realized it wasn't just talk anymore. She was thinking it through. I felt like the ground beneath me shifted. It's funny, when someone says they want a divorce, you'd think you'd feel anger or sadness. And sure, I felt both of those. But more than anything, I felt fear. It was like staring down a void. I thought, this is it. This is how the story ends. Then a few weeks ago, she said it again, calmly, seriously. I want a divorce. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a decision. And for the first time, I believed her. So I called a lawyer. I found the one that all my coworkers talked about, the good one in town. The one who had either saved them or ruined their ex's life. It felt like an act of war, but also a shield. I didn't want to be blindsided. I didn't want to be powerless. If she was serious, I needed to be ready. It gave me a strange sense of control, even though it felt awful. Like I was betraying something sacred. But I kept telling myself, this is the advice I'd give someone else. Be prepared. Protect yourself. Just in case. It wasn't an impulsive decision. I sat with it for a few days. I thought about my kids. I thought about how we'd explain this to them. I thought about every night I'd spent in silence with my wife in the last 2 years, both of us too tired or too guarded to try and reach the other. I wondered how we got here. I still do. The weirdest part is, despite all of this, I'm not sure it's over. We haven't filed. We haven't even talked about the lawyers since that night. Things are tense. But also oddly calm. Like the eye of the storm. We've had moments of softness, too. Shared laughter over something the kids did. A familiar glance while watching TV. She thanked me the other night for cleaning up after dinner, and it didn't feel like sarcasm or bitterness. It felt real. But those moments are fleeting, like gasps of air before going under again. We're still circling each other. Not quite fighting, not quite making up. Just existing in the same space, navigating this emotional limbo. I don't know what she's thinking. I don't know what I'm feeling half the time. Some days, I fantasize about starting over, burning it all down and finding peace in solitude. Other days, I think about the good years, the early years, and wonder if there's still something left to save. I'm not writing this for advice. I think I just needed to get it out. To say it all somewhere. I don't know what happens next. Maybe she'll talk to her lawyer. Maybe I'll go to my appointment. Maybe we'll finally have that honest conversation we've been avoiding for years. So, after calling the attorney, I didn't cancel the appointment right away. I just pushed it out. Told myself I'd wait and see how Mother's Day went. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was hope. Maybe I was just buying myself time. All I know is, I wasn't ready to make anything final yet, not when there was still the possibility, even the faintest one, that we could get back on track. I planned the day carefully. I wanted her to feel appreciated, pampered, seen. I took over everything, cooking, the kids, the cleanup. I tried to let her rest, gave her a bath with rose petals, got her gifts, flowers. I thought I was doing the right thing by making sure she didn't have to lift a finger. I was proud of myself, in a quiet way, thinking maybe this was the kind of gesture that would show her I was trying. But it backfired. We had a fight not long after. She told me the flowers I picked were wrong. The gifts were tone deaf. She said she was bored for most of the day. She felt like an observer, not the subject. She wanted connection, presence, not just acts of service. And looking back, I think I see it. I was doing things for her, but not with her. She didn't want a personal assistant. She wanted a husband. I'd been so focused on trying to perform what I thought a good day looked like that I missed the part where I just had to be there with her, emotionally. She did say she appreciated the bath. That stuck with me, even as the rest of it unraveled. But then the word divorce came up again. Sharp, loud, final. And in that moment, I felt foolish for having held on to hope. So I didn't cancel the lawyer. I kept the appointment on the books, just in case. Not because I was sure it was over, but because I was scared it might be. Around that time, I stumbled onto Heidi Priebe on YouTube. I don't even remember what I was searching for, something about attachment styles, maybe. But once I found her content, something clicked. Her way of explaining avoidant and anxious attachment, the push-pull dynamics, the patterns of conflict that get locked in over time, it felt like she was describing our marriage. It was the first time I saw myself from the outside. Not just as the misunderstood husband or the tired dad, but as someone with a pattern. I realized how often I'd withdrawn when I should have leaned in, how my silence came across as indifference, how my defensiveness made her feel crazy for asking for basic emotional presence. For the first time in a long time, I had questions, real ones, not just mental complaints. I started writing things down, thinking maybe I could bring them to a therapist. I decided to try new things. I was more direct. I let myself be vulnerable, even when it made my skin crawl. I stopped trying to fix every conversation and started trying to feel it instead. And to my surprise, she noticed. We had a few good weeks. No dramatic blow-ups. We connected more. We laughed again. We talked. Really talked. She said she could feel the difference. We both agreed, it was working. I remember one night, lying next to her in bed after a long conversation, and for the first time in a while, I saw a future I actually wanted. Not one where we just stay together for the kids, or tolerate each other, but one where we actually liked being around each other again. That feeling didn't last, but for a while, it was enough to keep me going. Here's where it gets messy. I'd promised her for over a year that I'd go to therapy. I made that promise because I meant it. Or, at least, I meant to mean it. I did a consult last year, it didn't feel right. Something about the vibe, the approach, I don't know. I tried again in February. Same deal. No connection. And then I just stopped trying. I told myself I was too busy. That I didn't know how to find someone good. That maybe I could figure this stuff out on my own with books and videos and better self-awareness. And in some ways, I did grow. I stopped blaming her for everything. I stopped seeing myself as the victim. I started seeing how my lack of emotional availability had left her feeling unsafe, lonely, unseen. I made an effort to listen more, to stay grounded during conflict, to stop making everything about me. But that wasn't enough. I didn't follow through the way I said I would. And that's the piece that keeps haunting me. It's not just that I was avoidant. It's not just that I've been inconsistent. It's that I promised her I'd get help, and I didn't. Not really. I let the months go by, each time with a new excuse. And she saw it. She lived it. She watched me make the same mistake over and over again, overpromising on things I had no plan to deliver. It's eroded her trust. I know that. Even when I'm showing up better now, she questions how long it'll last. If this version of me is real or just another temporary reprieve before I slide back into old habits. And honestly, I don't blame her. What's frustrating is, I want to find a therapist now. I feel ready in a way I wasn't a year ago. I know what I want to talk about. I want to understand my defensiveness. I want to understand why I shut down when she cries. Why I recoil when I feel pressure, even when it's coming from someone I love. I want to know where those instincts come from, what they're protecting me from, and how to undo the damage they've caused. But I'm late. And my credibility with her is damaged. We're still here, in the same house, raising our kids, trading the rhythms of domestic life, laundry, dinners, bedtime stories. Some days feel normal. Others don't. Some nights, we sit together and talk like friends. Others, the silence between us is thick and impenetrable. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't know if therapy will be the thing that turns the tide, or if I'm already too late. But I do know this, I'm not ready to give up. Not yet. Not when I can finally see the things I couldn't see before. Not when I finally understand that trying isn't a gesture, it's a daily commitment. One I failed to make fully. One I want to make now. So no, I haven't canceled the lawyer. But I also haven't forgotten what it felt like to lie next to her on that quiet night and believe we had a future worth fighting for. And to add something, I think, if there's one thing I feel confident about in this whole mess, it's that I pull my weight in the household. We've always had a fairly natural division of labor. She has her areas, I have mine. I handle a lot of the kid logistics, school runs, doctor's appointments, staying home when they're sick. I cook plenty of dinners, I manage bills, I fold laundry without being asked. It's not heroic. It's just being a parent, being a partner. I'm not looking for applause, and I know I could always do better, but this has never been the point of contention in our marriage. Where we've faltered, where we're still faltering, is emotionally. It's the stuff beneath the surface. The hard-to-name needs and resentments and missing signals. The way we don't always hear each other even when we're both speaking clearly. Which brings me to now. Or, more accurately, a few weeks ago. She had this idea, an adventurous one. Selling the house, buying an RV, traveling across the country with the kids while working remotely and homeschooling them along the way. She framed it as a chance to explore, to reconnect, to step outside the rut we were in and see if a different lifestyle would help us figure things out. She imagined stopping in different towns, seeing what stuck. Maybe we'd find a new place to settle, or maybe we'd come back to Oregon with fresh eyes and appreciation. I didn't love it. Not at first. To me, it felt like uprooting everything, our home, our routine, our support systems, for an idea that sounded more like a fantasy than a plan. It felt untethered. And with how shaky our marriage had already been, the thought of putting even more instability into the mix made my chest tighten. But I didn't want to shut it down outright. I knew this idea was meaningful to her. She was chasing something, maybe freedom, maybe clarity, maybe connection. So I tried to stay open. We talked about it for days, on and off. I asked questions, listened to her dreams about where we'd go, how it might look, how the kids would adjust. And I'll admit, there were moments where it felt exciting, where I could picture us on the road together, having campfires, waking up in beautiful, unfamiliar places. I let myself daydream a little, not because I was convinced, but because I wanted to meet her there. I wanted to be a partner in the vision, at least long enough to understand it. But in the back of my mind, I kept circling around one thing: our marriage hasn't felt stable. It's felt like walking a rope bridge in high wind, every step creaking, uncertain. How could we expect to live in a tin can on wheels together if we're already having trouble coexisting under a roof with doors? Still, I didn't want to lead with skepticism. I thought, okay, maybe I can use this conversation to actually share something real. Maybe this can be one of those moments where I risk being vulnerable and it leads to connection, not conflict. So I waited for the right time and told her, I do have one big concern with this RV idea. It's the stability of our marriage. I had planned to follow up with something like, but maybe this kind of journey could actually help us reconnect. Maybe shaking things up is what we need, but I didn't get that far. She froze. And then she went ice cold. Immediately, she took my words as an indictment. Not just of the RV idea, but of her. Of us. She said it sounded like I was already planning a life without her. That me bringing up stability in that context was code for wanting an exit plan. I tried to clarify, but it was like trying to build a bridge mid-collapse. She kept pushing, demanding to know what else I'd done. She said it felt like I was hiding things from her. She wanted to know if I was talking to someone. If I'd started separating finances. If I'd contacted a lawyer. And here's the thing, I'm a terrible liar. Always have been. My face gives me away before my mouth even opens. Plus, I didn't want to lie. Not just because I'm bad at it, but because I didn't want to deal with the fallout when she inevitably got the truth out of me. Because she always does. So I told her. I told her I had made an appointment with a divorce attorney. I explained, haltingly, that it was weeks ago, when I really thought she was serious about ending things. That I felt panicked, powerless, like the rug was being yanked out from under me. That I needed to reclaim some sense of control. That all the talk of her picking out an attorney made me think something was already in motion on her end, and I didn't want to be caught flat-footed. It didn't go well. The conversation shifted instantly from theoretical RV plans and emotional vulnerability to betrayal. She wanted to know if I was hiding money. If I had a secret plan. If I had one foot out the door all along while pretending to work on things. I tried to tell her the truth, that the appointment felt more like self-protection than intention. That I never went through with it. That I'd postponed it multiple times. That I had actually been considering canceling it entirely, especially after we started finding some peace and connection again. But none of that seemed to matter once the words, divorce attorney, were out of my mouth. It's hard to explain what that kind of disclosure does to a fragile truce. It's like tossing a lit match into a pile of dry leaves. Even if it doesn't cause a full-blown fire, the smoke gets into everything. It stings your eyes. It lingers. Since then, there's been a quiet between us. Not the kind that's peaceful. The kind that's tense, like the air before a thunderstorm. We go through the motions, me with the kids, her on her laptop, the occasional shared laugh that feels both real and impossibly far away. I think about the RV thing more now. Not because I've changed my mind about it, but because I understand what it represents to her. A reset. A break from the grind. A chance to shake off the weight of resentment and exhaustion and see if there's still something worth salvaging under the day-to-day noise. Maybe it was her version of therapy. Her Hail Mary. And I worry that by bringing up the attorney, I made her feel like I'd already given up. But I haven't. I really haven't. I'm just trying to find a way through the fog. Trying to hold on to the progress we made without pretending the damage didn't happen. Trying to be honest about how I feel without making her feel unsafe. And trying to figure out if I can still be the partner she needs, or if that window is quietly closing while I scramble for the right words. I haven't gone back to the attorney. I haven't scheduled anything new. But I haven't thrown away the number either. So after all this happened, this is where we are now. She says I've committed an irreparable betrayal. That by contacting a divorce attorney, I made a choice that I can't walk back. That I wasn't acting in fear or confusion, I was planning a life without her. She says she never told me we were getting divorced. Only that divorce was what would happen if I didn't change. She says every time she brought it up, she was expressing desperation, not decision. And that after every argument, when we chose to reconcile, she believed we were moving forward together, fully, both feet in. She thought I was 100% committed. I thought I was, too, until the ground kept shifting beneath me. Maybe I was 99%. Maybe that missing 1% is the part that did the damage. I never wanted to give up. But I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments, quiet, suffocating moments, where I questioned whether we were salvageable. Not because I didn't love her. Not because I didn't want our life, our kids, our years of shared history. but because I was afraid I didn't know how to fix it. Afraid I didn't know who I was inside the version of us we'd become. I tried to explain that to her. That when I reached out to that attorney, it wasn't because I wanted out. It wasn't a declaration. It was an act of defensive fear, one small, panicked move to make sure I wouldn't be blindsided if she walked away first. I said it plainly, that I own my decision. No one forced me to do it. I made the call. I took the step. But that doesn't mean her words didn't shape the moment. And still, she shut it down. She refused to acknowledge that her repeated threats of divorce had any bearing on my choice. Said I was refusing to take responsibility. Said I was cherry-picking things from our conversations to justify what I did. And maybe she's right about some of that. Maybe I am cherry-picking. But only because those particular moments hit differently. They echo. They linger. When someone you love says, "I don't know if I can do this anymore," or "Maybe we're just not meant to be together," or "I'm ready to call a lawyer," it doesn't land softly. It imprints. Even when the fight ends. Even when the apology comes. Those words live in your bloodstream. You replay them while brushing your teeth. You remember the exact tone of voice when you're driving alone. They don't just vanish when the conversation moves on. And I wish she could understand that. I wish she could look past the fact that I reached out to an attorney and see the feeling that drove me to it. The sense of being braced for an ending, even when I didn't want one. But to her, that nuance doesn't matter. I acted. I crossed a line. And now everything is colored by that. She says she can't trust me again. She says I wasn't fully invested. And she says that if I had been, I would have talked to her instead of someone else. What do I even say to that? How do you explain to someone that you were too afraid of breaking something, so you did something that helped break it? It's like setting the house on fire because you're afraid of burglars. It doesn't make sense from the outside. But when you're spiraling, when you feel helpless and unworthy and like every conversation might be the last, you act out of fear, not logic. The guilt is immense. Crushing. I feel like a piece of trash for doing the one thing that might have destroyed the very thing I was trying to protect. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that moment. But I also can't pretend I didn't see something real before it all fell apart. Because here's the cruel twist, in the weeks before this blew up, I'd started to feel hope again. I had begun to truly understand what needed to change in our relationship, my part of it, especially. I'd started to take actual, sustainable steps. Not performative gestures, but real ones. I was listening better. I was showing up with presence, not just presence of body but mind and emotion. I was softening where I'd been guarded, and firming up where I'd been passive. I could finally see the path forward. It felt possible. But now, she says that any change I've made is moot. That it doesn't count. That it's tainted by the fact that I was, in her words, planning an exit. And maybe that's fair. Maybe this is the price of acting from fear instead of faith. I don't know how to fix it now. I don't even know if it can be fixed. She won't hear apologies anymore. She says she's numb to them. She says I've said sorry before and it hasn't changed the root. That now, it's not about the fight, it's about the choice I made when things were already getting better. And she's not wrong about that. That's what makes it so hard. This isn't a story of someone who gave up and now wants back in. It's a story of someone who never wanted out, but didn't know how to cope with the possibility of being left. And now, I'm left wondering if I have to just accept the consequence. To live with the fallout of my fear. To sit in the ruins of something I might have actually been able to rebuild, if I had just trusted her enough to not act defensively. If I had just stayed vulnerable a little longer. So how do I show her now that I finally get it? That I've seen how incredible things could be if we keep doing the work, together. I don't know that I can. Because she won't listen. She's not in a place where she can receive any of it. The door isn't just closed, it's bolted from the inside. And knocking louder only makes it worse. So I've stopped talking about it with her. Not because I've stopped caring. But because I can see now that pleading my case isn't the answer. Words won't save this. Only consistency will. Maybe the only shot I have at saving this is to become the person I should have been without the looming fear of loss. To make the changes I was finally making, not because I'm trying to win her back, but because they were the right changes. Because they were overdue. Maybe it's not about trying to get her to believe in us again. Maybe it's about proving, over time, that I'm someone worth believing in. And if she never comes back from this, if she never trusts me again, then that's a consequence I'll carry. I won't fight it. I won't rewrite the past. But I won't forget that for a brief moment, before I let fear steer the wheel, I saw a version of our marriage that felt worth everything. And I'll carry that too. Whatever happens now, I know I can't go back. But maybe I can still go forward, changed, aware, and finally wide awake.